Hey, what's up everyone? In this video I'm going to show you how I recorded a set of presentation and how I put it together pretty easily in Final Cut Pro X, and what did I do to make those presentations really interesting to watch and dynamic. So the presentations were about 30 minutes long. Each presenter had a PowerPoint that was being put up on the screen, and there was also an audience of about 50 to 60 people. So I'm going to walk you through what the equipment that I had, and also how did I set up my equipment, and what did I do to really make that presentation interesting, because again, it was a 30-minute long presentation, so how to make sure that whoever's going to watch it afterward is going to really pretty much get the full experience like they were actually sitting in the crowd that day. So let's get right into it. So I figured that it would be probably easier to just make a little drawing to explain the situation. So as I mentioned, I had a presenter and their screen and their PowerPoint, and your audience pretty much was rows of chairs, and again, probably 50 to 60 people. I knew that they had a lot of information on their PowerPoint. I definitely needed to include the PowerPoint at all time to make sure that whoever was going to view the video afterwards would get all the information they needed. So what I ended up doing is that I set my first camera here in the corner, where I would frame it to get the presenter and the screen. This was, I think, my Sony a6500 with an 18mm lens, so it was wide enough that I would always get the presenter in the frame as well as his PowerPoint material. And then I was actually walking around. I had a second camera that I recently picked up, a second-hand camera, and a Sony a6300, and so I was walking all around constantly and taking other shots. And on this camera, on the second camera, I had an 18-105 lens, which allowed me to zoom in and get a lot of different angles. So for example, I would get in the back and I would zoom in I would do a pretty close-up shot of the presenter, and I would hold that for maybe a minute or two. And then I would move, and maybe I would get some of the crowd, or I would get a different angle. And I pretty much continuously kept doing that for 30 minutes, where I would go back and forth around the audience and getting different angles. So a major tip to do that is that when I first started recording everything, I was here with my two cameras and I started them at the same time. And this camera that's set on a tripod was recording the whole time, and my camera that I was handhelding, I was letting it roll the whole time as well. So that was kind of the setup, and it worked out really nicely. I would say that the only thing that I would do in the future is that I would definitely get a monopod for that handheld cameras, because trying to handhold the cameras at different locations for 30 to 40 minutes was pretty tiring. So now you have a better idea of what the setup was like. As I mentioned, the major thing to think about is really starting both cameras at the same time, more or less, and let them roll the entire lens. You don't want to have a second camera that you're going to keep starting and stopping the video, because then you would have to always find where that was and match it with the sound, and that would be really challenging. Also, to mention, the first camera, the one on the tripod, that's the one that was actually recording the sound, and I had a wireless microphone that was actually put on that the presenter was wearing, and that's how I was getting pretty much the main audio. And I was getting audio from the other camera, but I only used it to match it at the beginning, to just match it originally, and then in the video editing software, disable that sound so that I would only keep the one from the microphone. So let me show you in the software quickly what that looked like. So here we are in Final Cut Pro X. So I wanted to show you that, as I mentioned, I was using two cameras and I let them roll the entire time. So if you see here, I only have actually two clips. So I had my clip that's the one that was set up on the tripod, that was including the presenter as well as the presentation. And so that's probably 30 minutes worth of it. And then if I go all the way down, you'll see that I had my second clip taken from the other camera, and that one was actually the one that I was using to take close-up shot at different moments. So I also would, include the crowd, I would get different angle of the presenter, and so on. So you kind of get the idea. Once that was done, I put everything on the timeline. So the bottom here is actually my baseline. That's the one that is actually record it from the tripod, and that has the good quality audio. What I did is that on top of it, I just added the one file, which was the other camera. And once I got them, you have to make sure that they're really aligned as far as the sound. And once that's done, pretty much what I would do is that I would cut pieces when I decided that I wanted to go back from a close-up shot to the wide shot. In an intent to keep this video dynamic and interesting to watch, I kept going back and forth between one and the other. As you can see here, if you just look a broad view of the timeline, you see that I keep going back and forth from the close-up shot to the main shot. And so the way I did it is that I would just pretty much cut it, and then I would hide it using, if you select the clip and type V, you can pretty much hide it. And that's what I did. And so I would just make my cut when I want to, and I would hide the clip in between. I could have deleted this clip. I just left them here because it doesn't hurt. But you kind of get the idea. And I did that for the whole length of the video. And that really kept it super interesting because you get all those different shots, all those different angles that you probably wouldn't have gotten if I had just used one single camera. So that made it super fun to watch and interesting. That's a really good way to engage your audience because they will get as much as what people got that day watching the presentation directly from the audience. So that's it for this week. I hope you got some value out of those tips that I shared as far as how to get the best out of recording a presentation and make it super interesting and fun to watch. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing as I will keep posting content of what I'm learning. And I hope to see you in the next video. If you have any question, drop them below in the comments and I'll make sure to get back to you. Thank you very much and I'll see you next week. Bye.